Welcome to She is Resilient, a podcast for women on their healing journeys who are ready to start living their most authentic and empowered lives outside of survival mode. I'm your host, Tatiana, trauma and somatic therapist, as well as a holistic coach, and I'm on a mission to help more women heal their nervous systems. Each week, me and my guests are going to get real and vulnerable about the experiences that led us to becoming the empowered and resilient women we are today. You'll leave this podcast with the skills, knowledge, and inspiration to start creating the life you deserve. Because if another woman can do it, so can you. Welcome to another episode of She is Resilient. Today we have another guest, Megan. Megan, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do for a living?
Hi, yes, I am so unbelievably, oh my God, as I can't even talk already, but I'm so unbelievably excited to be here. Energy is just bursting out of me already. My name is Megan Blust. I am an intuitive healer, an embodiment coach, and my main mission is to help women really ditch the perfection on paper, really ditch the expectations and the societal pressures, and really live life as their fullest expression and in their authentic self. And so I use quantum healing,
Mhm.
astrology, human design, and we really get to know the soul, the person. And as we, continue to move through fears and limiting beliefs and begin to shed everything that is not of us, we really start to become the woman that we're here to be. So that's kind of like in a nutshell what I do and
Wow.
how I do it.
I love that. I love that so much. So tell us a little bit about your journey and who you were before this current version of you.
Yeah, what a girl. What a girl she was, honestly. I really started out, I mean, I always was a little psychic and intuitive as a child, but I genuinely, like, my parents just like did not know what to do with me. You know what I mean? I felt very deeply, I had very strong emotions. And so as I continued to grow, I
Mhm.
kind of just shut that down and numbed that out, and I
Mm.
continued to numb. And so when I entered into college, my early 20s, I just became like the fun party girl, the
Mhm.
personality hire, like the girl that you can always depend on to bring a good time, to get along with everyone. And just really at the end of the day, I was just going through the motions and
Mhm.
trying to just, like, live a life that I felt like everyone else was living. I'm like, "I guess this is it." Like, I'll go get a
Mhm.
job in corporate, like,
Mhm.
I guess I'll major in business, like, I don't know what else to do, and there was years and years of then just starting to have my numbing tendencies of
Mhm.
turning to alcohol, turning
Mhm.
to drugs,
Mhm.
really started to get the best of me, and it was right before my 27th birthday. I really had this, like, giant awakening. My grandfather wound up passing away,
Mhm.
and it was this giant, like, I don't know why, because 'cause I've had people pass before, but for whatever reason, this death really sparked this, like, awakening and remembering within me. Because I
Mhm.
already started to dive in a little bit in astrology, and I got my first tarot reading. I was like, "Whoa, okay, like, there's, like, something here." And
Mhm.
then once that happened, it was just this giant awakening of remembering how psychic I was and intuitive I was, and I was like, "Wait, oh my god, like, there's so much more to this life than just, like, working until Friday and then, like,
Mhm.
being drunk the entire weekend." Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to do so much more, and I
Mhm.
just never really knew how to really find that. And so having the spiritual awakening, I finally really grounded into my own remembering, and I just dove into everything I could possibly get my hands on. Like, I dove
Mm.
into more astrology, human design, quantum healing, somatic healing. Like, I
Mhm.
just dove into like everything every which way.
Mhm.
And through this journey, I really just started unbecoming, I
Mm.
realized that the life that I was living like wasn't ever really meant for me. Like I
Yeah.
was just at the end of the day just trying to make my parents happy and just
Mhm.
trying to like fit into this box. And the more that I found out about myself, I'm like, wait a minute, like I've actually never was meant to be in a box. Like
Mhm.
my human design, my numerology, everything is always the change maker, the rule breaker.
Mhm.
Like we're living a more unconventional life. And I
Yeah.
started to notice, because even after this awakening, I was still terrified. Like I was
Yeah.
terrified of like starting a business and going out on my own. And, my partner and I, we were traveling around the country on Airbnbs at the time. And so it was
Mhm.
just, I was in so much fear, but the more that I stayed where I was, my body was just starting to shut down.
Mhm.
I couldn't digest anything anymore. I was losing my hair.
Mhm.
Like I was gaining weight. Like it just, and like nothing could, like nothing was helping. No diet could fix it.
Yeah.
And I realized I finally just had this like breakdown moment because I'm crying in the shower before I log into my meetings. Like
Mhm.
my soul was like genuinely starting to like dissipate and like
Yeah.
die.
And what was the job that you had at that time?
I was an executive assistant.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and yeah, in a previous life, I was an executive assistant for um like 6 years, 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just this completely different from what I'm
Yeah.
doing now.
Yeah.
And so it was this really interesting it was this really interesting experience where I finally just broke down and I was like, okay, like I just have to go. Like I don't know where I'm going and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know it's time to go. And I made that leap. It actually, I didn't even plan it this way, but I put in my notice the day my Saturn like returned on my chart. And I was like, wow, 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 wow.
Wow.
How funny is that?
Can you
And
tell
so
us what that means for people who aren't into astrology? What does that mean?
oh, yes, great question. So your Saturn return is a really potent time in your life. Depending on how long you live, you experience it 3 times.
Mm.
So, when you think of your natal chart, is what they call it in astrology, when you have your birth time, it maps out where every single planet is the moment that you came into this earth.
Mm.
For Saturn, Saturn rules, it's kind of like big grandfather energy of the zodiac. They rule over responsibility, accountability, loving, but a little stern. And
Mhm.
so Saturn takes around 29 years to do a full rotation to get back to where it was when you were born. So they call it the Saturn return because you experience it when you're 29, right before you hit your 60s, and then before like late 80s.
Wow.
And it's this time where it's really kind of calling you back and bringing you into your next stage of adulthood. It
Mhm.
really brings things that you might have been avoiding in your life, areas that we might have been, kind of sliding by and running away from. And it's really just like a giant ass reality check, to be totally
Wow.
honest. Like it really brings all the things to the forefront. And depending on, of course, where it is in your chart, it'll bring up different things. For me, it was all about identity. It was
Mm.
in my first house. So my Saturn return was a giant identity shift, which is why I'm like, what a journey. Because the girl that I was before, who I am now, is a completely different person. And
Yeah.
it had me change everything. And it
Mhm.
was in that Saturn return, I was bawling my eyes out. I went to yoga teacher training and everyone was so excited to like graduate. And I'm like, I'm terrified. Like I'm putting my notice into my job
Mm.
like the second I get out of this.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting experience, but I did it. And now my life has just everything has changed in the best way. I can eat things now. Turns out
Uh-huh.
having a regulated nervous system really does like wonders for you. Not
Who would have
positive.
known?
Who would have known? What a concept. Like, who would have known? Like, not being stressed out 24 hours a day, like, actually helps you digest and
Mhm.
like not lose your hair and like not,
Uh-huh.
want to cry every second of every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it like completely, I just completely I went on my own and it was terrifying. And so many people, I was met with so much fear, like as if everyone around me, they just didn't understand and they didn't see it. And now,
Yeah.
2 years in, almost, yeah, 2 years in, and
Mhm.
yeah, going on three. And it's just so interesting to see like how this journey just completely brought me to where I am. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's been beautiful. But
Yeah.
that's who we were before.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. So let's rewind a little bit. You said that you were starting to come back to your intuitive self. You were starting to remember that you had these intuitive abilities, and I'm curious to know what that looked like for you.
So it really started with a very, very vivid dream that I had. And this is like when I was remembering. And it was
Hmm.
right before my grandfather wound up passing away. And
Hmm.
it was like I was like in the middle of the day, it was 2020, so it was COVID. I was like, I'm tired. I'm gonna take a nap. I took a nap. I had this incredibly vivid dream to the point that I woke up and was I knew more had to come through, and I fell back asleep and I continued to dream.
Hmm.
The point where I woke up and I grabbed my phone and I immediately voice noted everything. Like it was just one of the most intense dreams I've ever had. And then 2 weeks later, this dream foretold my grandfather who wound up passing away 2 weeks later.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
so having that realization and like witnessing the events happening like really sparked this, like, remembering in myself, and then, of course, when you're on a plane, because I live in California now, so I'm on a plane back to Jersey for
Hmm.
6 to 7 hours. You have
Hmm.
a lot of time to really, like, think and contemplate, and,
Yeah.
usually they say spiritual awakening, it's like death, divorce, or diagnosis. Really
Hmm.
tends to spark some things into place, but it
Hmm.
had me remember my incredibly vivid dreams I had when I was younger, the ghosts I used to see around, and it really brought me into the sense of like, okay, wait, like there's this part of me that actually when I'm not numbing myself out,
Mhm, mhm,
I'm very connected to my body and I'm very connected to my own wisdom. And that's
mhm,
really what this journey of unbecoming really, and even remembering my intuition brought me to is really learning how to be my own leader. And I started, meditating more and journaling
mm,
more. I fell in love with oracle cards and
mhm,
really falling in love there. And though then sometimes there was definitely journeys where I was then giving away so much of my power, like looking for validation in
yeah,
other psychics and like
mhm,
other, readers and people like trying to like, because if sometimes it can be just so overwhelming. It's like, okay, like,
yeah,
am I crazy? Like, am I just like making this
yeah,
up? Or
yeah,
what is this? But
uh-huh,
it was really this like deep journey of really not only, like, remembering that because we're all intuitive, and now
mhm,
this was simply a remembering of, like, of me and my own ways of feeling into what I need and being my own
mhm,
authority, but witnessing that it's like I can learn from others and I can value others, but also at the
mhm,
same time, like, it really does start with me and it begins with me,
yeah,
and learning how to trust myself was
yeah.
probably the biggest the biggest journey.
Yeah. So how did you do that? How did you learn to trust yourself? So I know that you said that you started to kind of get into astrology and human design a little bit more. Did you go to therapy or did you do any other alternative methods of healing to learn to trust your body more and yourself more? Tell us all about it.
Yes, as I'm like, as I said in the beginning, I really dove into everything. Like, of course,
Hmm.
I started with astrology and human design. And when I found human design and finding out I was a projector, it really changed my life. Like it
Mm.
really did. Because that even that realized I was like, okay, wow, like I'm not meant to just hustle and grind my way through life. Like it
Uh-huh.
really, I get to operate so differently. And from there, I was brought into breath work and I met my one of my first mentors who does quantum healing. And that's when I really started learning how to channel and learning how to, because especially for me, my intuition really came through feeling first. So
Mm-hmm.
mine was all about feeling into the body and feeling pressure with like wherever I needed to go within. And then
Yeah.
when I would keep, as I like to describe it, I would just keep following the thread. So when I would
Mm-hmm.
feel into the body, as I keep going to my heart space has just been like, oh my God, so sore lately. It's just really been like, it's just like opening more. It's just like a lot of energy, but I'm like, holy moly. So I'll go to my heart space.
Uh-huh.
When I go into my heart space and I start feeling into all that pressure, it's like I follow this little thread and I really
Yes.
like to follow this little thread to where maybe I first experienced this type of pressure. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
start getting into inner child healing, past
Mm-hmm.
life regression,
Mm-hmm.
all of these little areas that really kind of bring me, you know, into a deeper place of really understanding the root of why I'm feeling whatever fear, because that's at the end of the day, I truly believe everything is rooted in in some type of fear, one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And so when we really start to feel into that, that's kind of how I started to learn how to trust. I went to, and especially when I started doing emotional release work and somatic work, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just, they all kind of just like started to bleed into each other
Mm-hmm.
and really bring me into this place of like, okay, it's safe to be in my body. It is safe to feel. It
Yeah.
is safe to listen to myself. Because I think when you like go through life, especially just with how society is, it's like you have your parents and they are your authority. And then you go to school and then your teachers are your authority. And then you
Mm-hmm.
go to college and you still have guidance counselors and teachers and other people that are always somewhat your authority. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
schooling really ever lets you explore what it means to be yourself and how to lead yourself. And so for me, like this unbecoming was really like this giant wave of learning how to actually be in my body, like
Mm-hmm.
stopped drinking, like
Mm-hmm.
stopped, like removed the birth control, like
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff that like used to numb me and keep me out of my body, like it really forced me to come back in.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I let myself, and then of course, there's bumps along the way, right? Trusting
Of
certain
course.
people and then realizing that it wasn't what we thought and realizing,
Totally.
oh, like like I intuitively knew that this would happen, but I didn't want to believe it. And so, you always have these ebbs and flows of when you are learning how to trust yourself and trust the intuitive things that come to you. But at the end of the day, the biggest lesson was just what I keep repeating to myself, at least, is learning the notion of like, who am I to
Mm-hmm.
like keep myself back from just following what feels right for me? Like, who am I to
Mm-hmm.
withhold information because it doesn't make sense to me? Who
Yeah.
am I to like try to like configure or maneuver something to make it feel like it makes more sense and that it's more grounded, when at the end of the day, like the more that you do surrender and just let it flow through you,
Mm-hmm.
like the easier and more apparent it becomes. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's not as much of a battle to like, okay, like I need to like trust myself. Like now it just becomes like, oh yeah, that's right. I can lead myself because I know that I'm safe and then I've got
Mhm.
me, you know.
Totally right. It's letting go of that need for control all of the time. And as we start to connect with our bodies and start to kind of sense in and see what's happening inside, we kind of allow ourselves to not just know cognitively that we're safe, but really feel in our bodies that we're safe. And going back to what you were saying, once we know that we're safe, we can trust ourselves and we can surrender a little bit more. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know someone who is maybe just starting out on their healing journey, whether it is a spiritual journey or just kind of dipping their toes into healing. Where do you suggest that they begin? Where do they start? Because there are so many options.
Oh my God, totally. Right. And like, I think that's what's so fun is really when it comes to opening up your spirituality and, wanting to hone in on your intuition, it's really like a choose your own adventure.
Mhm,
For me, it was through astrology and human design, but
mhm,
the most healing I've gotten is through quantum and somatic healing. And
mhm,
so I think it's really finding someone that you resonate with and that you trust, and also knowing that finding someone that lets you find your own answers.
mhm,
So, like for me, like when I'm in session with my clients, like I bring my clients through, you could say, a guided meditation and a guided journey. And I'm here to
mhm,
hold the space and I'm here to help you release what's ever there and find the answers that are within. But
mhm,
I am not necessarily channeling the answers for you. Like I
mhm,
really allow you to lead yourself. And the more that I think you allow yourself to be led in that way,
mhm,
because I think it can be so easy to be like, oh, well, like what came through for you? My clients tell me
mhm.
it's all the time. It's like, oh, like, so this happened for me, but like what came through for you?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, it doesn't. I'm like, not to say that it doesn't matter what came through for me, but it doesn't like I'm just here holding the space for you. What's
Yeah.
coming through for me is just the question that I'm asking you next,
Mhm.
not necessarily like the divine guidance that I feel like you are looking for. And so
Yeah.
doing maybe different guided meditations and really finding people that help you feel into yourself more,
Mhm,
that are able to hold space for you as you are guiding your own way.
mhm,
I loved finding out my human design,
mhm,
because I love to when I compare astrology and human design, astrology, I feel like gives you the themes of your life. Like these are like the overall things that like make you who you are and what you're here to do. And
mhm.
human design gives you the tools to do it.
Yeah.
Like gives you the strategies to like actually then like work with this energy and make this shit happen.
Yeah.
And so really like honing in on those two things were like anchors for me. And then going into the energy work and human and quantum healing was really like the most transformative work that I've done. And now, base my whole practice around it.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I remember, so I'm still pretty new to human design, and I learned that I'm also a projector. And I remember when I learned I was a projector, I was like, no, I'm not. I am not a projector. And I really wanted to resist it, but I think I wanted to resist it because I kind of trained myself to go, 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 right? Or my nervous system was living in the sympathetic state of activation that I really felt like, no, I don't need that rest. I don't need to just chill out, but I do. I do. And now that I've like I'm no longer living in that state of survival. I can give myself permission to, I work 3 days a week and I just give myself that time to rest and nourish myself. But yeah, human design is, I'm really interested in learning more about human design. But I'm also curious to know about quantum healing because I don't think I've ever really heard about quantum healing. I think I've heard about quantum leaps, but can you tell us a little bit more about what quantum healing is?
Yes, absolutely. To touch on the projector part first before we go into that, because I human design is the science of deconditioning. So the fact that you heard that you're a projector and you're like, ew, like what do you mean? Is like so no, it's so normal and it's so true. And
Mhm.
so and the fact that because I think it's so hard for us to take that time to rest. I know for me too, to the point where the only time I actually did rest was when my body would shut down and I would be sick. Like I
Mhm.
would have strep, I'd get a fever, all of that stuff. And so it's so cool that now, you even start to see it's like, oh, like projectors really is that like do less mentality really brings so much more. So I just
Yeah.
love that journey for you. And quantum healing is really, really cool. So the best way to describe it is I like to tap into the subconscious. I bring you into a deep meditative state and I bring you into your subconscious where we are then open to the limited possibilities. When you think of the quantum field, this is the energy that is all around us. It's the energy where we're co-creating with all the time. Think of it the energy of the universe.
Mm.
And how I like to differentiate it, because when you have Reiki, for example, which is another energetic
Mm-hmm.
type of energy healing, that's really like channeling light and frequency through you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a silent practice, a very you don't talk through it. It's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And how I like to quantum heal is really bringing you into this co-creative space, bringing you into connection with your highest self, and then allowing your highest self, to guide you then through the rest of the session,
Mm.
where we dive into more of that somatic work, whether it's, finding that little thread through your heart space to bring you to 7-year-old you that felt misunderstood and isolated and alone, whether that's guiding you through to a past life where we felt like especially like a lot of my clients, like the witch wound comes up a lot. So like when they're
Mm-hmm.
starting to really put themselves out there
Yeah.
and be seen in a whole new way, a lot of our throat space can be really activated and shut down.
Yeah.
Most of my life, I've had that was another big journey of mine, like really healing my voice and bringing my voice back. Because I grew up a dancer, so I was
Mm.
always in my body. I danced, but when it came to speaking or singing or like really sharing myself, like I was so closed off, because especially in the dance community, again, you have your dance teachers, right? And you're told what to do and you have the choreography and you go, but anytime I remember it's like, all right, free dance, I'd be like,
It's like, what do you do?
it's like, wait a minute, constantly looking at the mirror, constantly
Uh-huh.
analyzing like how my body looks and like what this move would do and like having it flow together. And it's so interesting that you
Yeah.
have that experience too. Because yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, and everyone can quantum heal in their own ways. Like my mentor, she was more of a like medical intuitive. And so she
Mhm.
really like got into like just like the biology of it all and like
Yeah.
really like did like cellular DNA stuff and like all
Wow.
like channel just like in crazy incredible things. Like she's so talented. But
So cool.
I do it a little bit more like a co-creative space where you are leading and you are being guided and really kind of mixing this, being guided to these places where we did feel like we had to close ourselves off and healing these parts of ourselves that we might not realize are running the show where we are
Mhm.
now, right?
Mhm.
But allowing those versions of us to really see the light of day and express themselves and
Mhm.
really be nurtured
Mhm.
and find, their home base with back
Mhm.
within ourselves, but in a more empowered place. And
Wow.
so that's kind of the work that I do.
So maybe tell us a little bit about some of your daily practices. What do you do on a daily basis to just kind of maintain the overall health of your body, your nervous system, mind, body, soul, everything?
Ooh, totally. So as a projector, the most important thing for projectors is that alone time.
Mhm.
It's that solitude. And so in the morning, like my morning practice is like what grounds me. And I take a long time in the morning in the
Mhm.
mornings too.
Yeah.
Where some people are like, Megan, like, you know, aren't you like trying to get through your day? And I'm like, I will get to my day when I get to my day. But my morning practice is really what grounds me. So I go to my altar, I meditate for a little bit, I journal. Sometimes I pull oracle cards. Sometimes I do not, depending on, what life is. I live in a very rural place, so luckily connecting with nature is really easy. I get to go outside. I go on a walk. I have my cacao in the mornings.
Mm.
I'm like, I think that's why my heart is just so open these days. I'm like just opening it up so much. But those are my practices that really, really ground me. And really help me tune into myself,
Mhm.
especially, in the world of social media. I even notice sometimes, like going to grab the phone or just want to have the TV on while I'm eating
Mhm.
something, and
Mhm.
really learning that the more silence I invite into my life, the more I can actually hear myself, the
Mhm.
more that I can stop saying that I don't know
Mhm.
something, because I'm actually giving myself the space to hear. Because now, especially, I'm more clairaudient these days. So
Mm.
I can actually hear,
Yeah.
like, what the fuck I'm here to do, and, like,
Uh-huh.
what I want to do,
Yeah.
without always, you know my avoidant tendencies always come up, they're always with us one way or another now that I'm not numbing out in recreational uses. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes it's social media, or,
Yeah.
just filling our day with a podcast or music or stuff like that. So I go my non-stimmy walks, as I like to call them,
Yeah.
are
I like
really,
that.
really important.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think we start with baby steps, right? Maybe you don't go on your normal hour-long walk non-stimmy, but maybe we start with just taking a shower without listening to a podcast or putting music on. Maybe it's washing the dishes and not having the TV on and
Mhm.
just being in the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe it's for the first 5 minutes of the day, instead of grabbing your phone, you
Mhm.
leave your phone. Like, what I do, like, I leave my phone on the bedroom table, my bedside table, and then I take myself to my morning practice, and I leave my bedroom and I go somewhere, and I'm just in it for a minute.
Yeah.
And at first, at this end of the day, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, it really is okay to, you know, experience these first 5 minutes and just be like, you just hear your mind like going and going. Sometimes on my non-stimmy walks, I just made a little reel that I'll be posting in a few days, but I like my mind is just singing like unhinged lyrics the entire time. But I don't judge myself, and I just like let myself have fun with it.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, that's just what's on my mind. And the more that we let our minds just like, because especially with the silence, you see and hear all the things that are going on in the background, and it's almost like this giant purge of like the more you just let that come out of you, all of a sudden you like come into this space where it's like, oh, okay, like now I can really like hear myself, now that all of this other shit is
Mhm.
not like living rent free in my mind. And so, like, it's
Totally.
okay to be a little uncomfortable. Like, it
Yeah.
really, really is. But knowing that, like, the more you do it and the more you meet those edges, the easier it's gonna get.
Yeah, 1000%. Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh, this was so great. How can people connect with you if they want to work with you or just hang out with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Megan Unbound, and you can. Yeah, my link tree is on there. I'll include my website, but I have one-off sessions, one-on-one packages, and I'm actually about to release a Saturn Return group program, which is all about helping
Ooh,
people move through, that 2-year cycle of their Saturn return, which is
wow.
a journey,
I
but the
love
most
that.
powerful time that you can go through. So it's fun. But
I love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
website, I'll give you guys everything. It'll be so fun, but I
Awesome.
can't wait. I have to connect with you all.
Yay, so exciting. Thank you so much, Megan. I really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Today it was so much fun.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you absolutely loved this episode, I would so appreciate it if you subscribed and left a review on Apple Podcast, or take a screenshot and share this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at tatiana.holistic.coach. The more nervous systems we reach, the more generational cycles we break, and the more we contribute to a kinder and safer world. And if you're looking for somatic healing services, send me a DM and I'd love to chat on how I can support you. I'll see you in the next episode.